Well, this week, the impeachment trial of President Trump began. Democrats wrapping up their case on Friday. The President Trump's legal team began Saturday. And while many wanted other witnesses to testify, Senator Lindsey Graham says it is not going to happen.
I want to end this thing sooner rather than later. I don't want to turn it into a circus.
Democrats believe some Republicans are convinced the president is guilty, but only time will tell if they actually vote reflecting that. All right. Andy, let me know, what do you think looking at this past week? Any big developments that you saw, or do you feel any differently than you did at the start of the week?
No, and I'll tell you, the great example is Chaz and I are really good friends, and we agree on how that we both love North Carolina and Charlotte.
Sure.
But what he hears and what I hear are completely different things, even though they're the same words. Well, that's going out throughout the nation, certainly in the Capitol, in the room where they're debating this. And, you know, I support Donald Trump and think that this is ridiculous. He doesn't, and thinks they need to keep the gas on and keep moving forward.
Well, I think that it's very clear that what the president is accused of doing, he did. And I think it's also very clear that if President Obama was accused of half of what President Trump did, that Republicans would have voted to impeach and remove him. I think it is a shame that we have people who are not willing to admit the truth, and the truth is this. President Obama and President Trump are held to two very different standards by Republicans, and Donald Trump did something he should not have done, and this was not something that Democrats necessarily wanted to do. There were some that wanted to do it, but for the most part, a lot of people in leadership were brought along on this kicking and screaming, but they believe that the stakes and the interest of the country demands and requires that this president be impeached and that he have a real trial and not a fake one.
You know, I disagree.
But you disagree.
I know, but you know, for goodness, what do you know?
Do you disagree with, though? Because do you think the phone call was wrong?
I think the transcripts of the phone call are out there.
Yes.
And you can go through them, and that it was, he keeps saying a perfect call. I don't know if it's a perfect call or not. I mean, we all are on the phone a lot. But this is such an overreach, and quite frankly, the leadership on the Democrat side, they're covering their butts back home.
Sure. Many would say Republicans are doing the same.
Absolutely.
There are more Democrats covering.
What I struggle with, and regardless about how you feel about President Trump or not, if you take that phone call, I feel like a lot of reasonable people can look at that phone call and be like, that was not a good thing.
Absolutely.
Whether you're a Republican president making that phone call or you're a Democrat, you would hope that does not happen. That sort of shakedown of another government at your own personal benefit.
I disagree with shakedowns, sir.
A lot of people, I'm simply saying, a lot of people would say that seems unsavory. Now, where I think a lot of people then go different paths is whether that's impeachable or whether that's not impeachable. It gets me that I feel like on the Democratic side, they've been jumping at it since day one to make sure that he's guilty of something. On the Republican side, though, I feel like Republicans have been wanting to dismiss it from day one. So, of course, they're wanting to dismiss the impeachment because they wanted to dismiss it from the very start. And it's, at what point do you have honest brokers on both sides who actually do want answers, who can say that's not a good phone call? I don't think the guy should be impeached, but that's not a good. Going forward past the Trump presidency, whether it's 4 years or 8 years, we do not want a president talking like that with another country.
And a big part of that is this is what happens when we get into a hyper-partisan environment where people have made their decision based on who's involved and not what's involved. The facts say President Trump did something wrong on that call. I think it's a problem when people won't even say that call, he should not have had that call. He should not have said, you know, you do something for me and I'll do something for you that's going to help me politically.
He didn't say that.
What did he? What do you think? What do you think that he said?
Well, I think he was working to help our interests.
How?
And so, I mean, here you go saying, I mean, you're like Schiff making stuff up as he's reading off of the list.
He has multiple witnesses, which the Senate Republicans will not call. He has.
The thing is, you don't even need the witnesses. Honestly, if you look at the transcript, I think you can look at the transcript and say, a president. Don't say Donald Trump. A president doing something like that appears to unsavory.
They make calls all the time.
Sure, they do.
All day long.
But presidents do not do this. Look, I have my own criticisms of President Bush, but President Bush
if you're right, if all presidents do this, if Barack Obama or George W. Bush or any of them actually are calling foreign foreign entities, foreign companies, or foreign countries, and asking them to investigate a political opponent, I would say that's problematic across the board.
You know,
I'm not
Biden
here to
is
say
out
whether
there.
that's impeachable, but I'm saying it's problematic at least.
Biden's out there holding back $1 billion to fire an attorney general in another country, and nobody says anything about it. And then he laughs about it.
Oh man!
But it seems like most of our intelligence agencies took issue with that attorney general, as you call, in Ukraine, and that's based on our own intelligence.
Right. And the question is, who are you going to trust? I mean, there's so many things about this story that we have people on the other side of the aisle who are parroting talking points that the Kremlin has pushed out. That, to me, is very, very troubling. And the fact of the matter is, we shouldn't have a situation where there's one set of facts and another set of facts. The facts are the facts. And the fact is that President Trump was using his foreign power as president, his foreign policy power, to hold another country to account to get information on a political rival in the United States. That is bad. That is wrong.
We have the exact same information, and we hear it completely differently. How many people on the campaign trail for lieutenant governor have asked you about impeachment?
About impeachment? I mean, we get questions all the time. So people are talking about this. You can't help but discuss it. But the fact of the matter is, it's not even so much who's talking about it. It's about the fact that something wrong happened and Republicans in the Senate won't admit it. Just admit that it was wrong.
Andy, what's your point? Is you're saying people aren't talking about it, so people don't care?
I don't think it doesn't affect the farmer in eastern North Carolina at this point. Now, I mean, nationally and internationally, turns out the tariffs do, and the trade deals do affect the farmer.
100%, especially those soybean farmers out there.
Yes, sir.
Then I say
from the Midwest.
We can leave it here. We can leave it here. But I still say, what do we do going forward? If you say people don't care about something like this, whatever, then the next Democratic president, who's President Smith or whoever, who does something, what are we going to do then? That's going to be an entire episode of Flashpoint. Is what are we going to do?
Every single one of the president's telephone calls, whether it's Obama, Trump, or whoever, should not be scrutinized for the transcripts.
There is a big difference between saying he didn't do anything wrong and he shouldn't be impeached, or he did something wrong and it's not impeachable or removable. Those are two different arguments. It seems like you're making the former and not the latter, which is a problem.
Let me just transition.
He's
slightly.
A lawyer, you know.
Slightly.
I mean,
still on this point. Democratic House members presented their opening statements to the Senate. Some senators using different ways to pass the time. Take a look. North Carolina Senator Richard Burr handing out fidget spinners to several of his colleagues. The small toys spotted on many senators' desks, some even playing with them. Senator Burr also brought a stress ball into the chamber before the trial started. These could be considered violations of Senate rules, we should say, which say senators must sit silently and listen to arguments during an impeachment trial. I mean, I say good for the senator for making light of the situation, but I will take issue with part of it because I saw in some of our coverage of the media, the arduous task put in front of these senators to sit there and pay attention. And it sort of struck me as a bit off just because I feel like these senators are paid handsomely to represent us up in D.C., to ask them to sit through a solemn process and pay attention, whether they're Democrat or Republican, is not asking too much. And you saw this past week, many of them stepping out, doing TV interviews, doing other things, rather than paying attention to the impeachment. And I don't think that's too much of us to ask of our elected officials.
We ask for more from our everyday people who are on juries.
Precisely.
We ask for the city council sits there from 7 p.m. They go to dinner at 5 to 7. City council sits there from 7 until midnight, if that's how long it takes. State House, you go in at 6 o'clock in the evening and you're there till midnight a lot. People are in and out, but people are paying attention. So it's not too much to ask them to pay attention to the trial.
Exactly.
That's the way it goes.
Hey, we all agreed. How about that?
I know we'd find something.
Yeah, there you go.
More Flashpoint after this.